All right, and welcome to Interpreting Scripture According to Scripture with Dals Kapelka. In today's episode, we continue examining Genesis 1, verse by verse. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now, this is an interesting statement as this God's Spirit moved on the face of the waters, because the word Spirit itself is a word used in different contexts as different meanings. So, for example, the word ruach is actually defined as breath, wind, and spirit, and they are used interchangeably depending on the surrounding context. So, as we can see in Genesis 1 2, and this over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God. In Exodus, it's translated the exact same word as the east wind. In Numbers, therefore went forth a wind from the Lord. Judges, so the Spirit of the Lord came. Samuel, now the Spirit of the Lord departed. First Kings, about when I leave you that Spirit. So we can see the word usage, ruach, is used for those specific purposes: breath, wind, and spirit. We're going to take a look at how this word is used to show a context in which we are allowed then, through biblical example, to apply the word usage of ruach to give us a better understanding of what's taking place in Genesis 1 2. The first example we will examine is in Exodus 10, as we read, So Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt, and the Lord directed a ruach on the land all that day and all that night. And when it was morning, the Ruach brought the locusts. So obviously the context is demanding here a wind. In Numbers 11, we read, Now there went forth a wind, a ruach, from the Lord, and it brought quail from the sea, and let them fall beside the camp. The people spent all day and all night, and all the next day, and gathered the quail. So we can see this as a literal wind. We see how this description is talking about a literal wind as well. We read in 1 Kings 18, For behold, a cloud as small as a man's hand is coming up from the sea. Go up and say to Ahab, Prepare your chariot and go down, so that the heavy shower does not stop you. In a little while the sky grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a heavy shower. So even here in this First Kings, we actually get a very interesting description as we're talking about clouds coming on the sea, bringing rainstorms, black clouds, and a ruach, a wind blew. In Isaiah, we also get another example. Behold, I have made you a new sharp threshing sledge with double edges. You will thresh the mountains and pulverize them, and make the hills his chaff. You will winnow them, and the ruach will carry them away, and the storm will scatter them. So there is wind and storm, ruach and storm, always seeing that natural connection, because storms naturally do incur wind. So, of course, that word usage is very applicable. So when we read Genesis 8:1, we have a very interesting picture taking place. We have Eden, who was just made formless and void by a flood. God brought judgment coming on the clouds and a great rainstorm, and he flooded the entire area. We're using natural examples of nature to describe the goings on. And after this great flood event, a great torrential storms that caused as the Bible describes, the flood to go to the tops of the mountains, that God, in the midst of Noah floating on the waters, at the midst and end of this judgment, as the picture we're given, God remembers Noah in that ark. And God made a ruach to blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. God did not make a spirit to blow over the earth, he made a wind. And what did that cause? Well, the fountains of the deep, the judgment of God, and the windows of heaven, the rains, were closed, and the rain from the heaven was stopped. And as a result of this wind blowing and the water stopping and the deep being closed, the waters dried up from the earth because this wind was drying it. So, as we read, Eden was made formless and void by that flood. Well, so God caused a wind to blow to make that dry land appear again. Genesis 1:2, what do we read? And the earth was without form and void. A people was made formless and void by judgment of flood, just as we read with Noah, who's coming out of a flood judgment of Eden, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. God's judgment was blotting out the sun, the moon, and the stars, and over the deep. And what do we see? So I'm just going to read my note here. And a people made formless and void by the flood. So God caused a wind to blow over the waters and caused dry land to appear. Genesis 1:2, we have the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. Well, that doesn't make contextual sense with the rest of the stanza. For if the earth was destroyed and made uninhabited, because God had come with the clouds of judgment blotting out the light over the deep, we saw the picture of the remnant of the flood and God causing a wind to blow. Contextually lines up with the proper usage of Ruha and actually literally duplicates the event of Genesis 8, in which Noah is sitting after the flood judgment waiting for God to appear. And what does God do? He appears and makes a wind to blow. And here we have a people who are just destroyed by a flood judgment, and God makes a wind appear in order to dry off the land. Genesis 8:13, in the 601st year the waters were dried from off the earth, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. Genesis 1:9, and God said, let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. I have given you dominion over the animals, and I have given you plants for food. And that's exactly what we see with Noah. And God blessed his sons, be fruitful and multiply, dominion over the animals. And just as I gave the food, I also give you the animals. The same exact contextual process of Genesis 8, Noah coming out of the flood, matches Genesis 1:2 with a nation coming out of the flood, and God reinstituting a new people by drying off the land with both Noah and Adam, and both with Adam being given dominion and starting his kingdom. We see the exact duplication of Noah starting his kingdom after the flood reset. Even Flavius Josephus of the antiquity, even in his book The Antiquity of the Jews, interestingly, the historian writes Genesis chapter 1, the constitution of the world, as in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, but when the earth did not come into sight and was covered with thick darkness, a wind moved upon its surface. And indeed, this was the first day. Josephus even translates Genesis 1 as to have a wind event, not a spirit event. Therefore, let us conclude this summary of Genesis 1:2 with the English and the biblical word usage. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And when we add in the known word usage of the Bible, well, the land has been made desolate, put in ruins, and there is no covenant man. God had come in judgment, coming on clouds, blotting out the light of heaven from reflecting off the floodwaters of destruction. God caused a wind to blow across the waters in order to dry up the land that was under the floodwaters. For the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And God caused a wind to blow over the face of the waters. If you enjoy the work that I'm doing here and would like to support it, you can do so by following the information upon the screen. And I would like to say that I find this stuff absolutely fascinating, and I really hope you do. And if you'd like to join the conversation beyond more than the comments, there is a link on this YouTube channel to go over to Discord where we can continue these topics in more detail, one-on-one, or in group conversation. So as we finish up this section of Genesis 1-2, I hope you found it exhilarating and enlightening, and I hope overall everything finds you well. So God bless.